criteria there. If there's a law being broken, there's certain elements that have to be reached in each of those offenses. And I have to be aware of those because if it doesn't meet the elements of the offense, I can't charge him with that crime. So once that's been determined, then an arrest is deemed to be the way to go. We can do that. We don't always have to arrest. Um, Sometimes we just write them a citation. Sometimes we can just give them an I bond, an individual bond, and it has the court date on all their information on it. And then they'll be sent a notice to go to court at a later date. That way we avoid having to take them up and they have to post bond and go through fingerprinting and all that. So let's say, I'll give you an example. Let's say somebody steals a can of soda pop or something or beer up at one of the local stores, and I arrest them. And I come up, I confront them. They admit to it. I've got the pop on them. They didn't pay for it. They didn't have any money, and it's a mother, and she's got her little kid in the car. Well, I could do one. She's not from out of town. She's just passing through town. So she's got this 3-year-old kid in the car. Do I want to put mom in handcuffs and take her all the way to the jail? I'm going to have to call DCFS to come and get the child or somebody else, a family member, and if she's from out of state or something. So in those particular circumstances, it might be better just to give her a notice to appear in court. And if she doesn't appear, then they'll issue a warrant for her arrest and ship it to wherever she resides. So we don't have to arrest everybody.
So then we've got one curiosity question.
Throughout the book, there is a media coverage story about a white police officer shooting an unarmed black man. We have seen similar events in the news. What are your thoughts on these events?
You know, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't watch a lot of that stuff because it just, I mean, it was frustrating because you hear so much negativity about police officers, and if you are a police officer, you try not to, but because you try to remain vigilant and positive and things like that. Unfortunately, there's a lot of people that have, like I said, made bad names for police officers. What was the reasoning? Was it like because they were really terrified and felt in their heart that something bad was going to happen? If somebody's fleeing away from them, would I shoot them? More than likely not, unless they were going to be a definite danger to someone else. They're running to, and they've been stabbing people and they're running away from me, you know. I may be justified in that particular case, but these cases that you're referring to, I'm not familiar with them in totality, but there have been a lot of bad decisions made by police officers, and unfortunately, at the spur of the moment when they're in the act of trying to subdue a subject or have been fighting with a subject, it's easy to break it down and analyze it in the days and weeks to follow. That officer at that time didn't have that amount of time to break it down and analyze it. They had to make a decision right there. And some made bad decisions. So, like I said, I don't know in that particular case what you're referring to, but I definitely think it's sad because it puts a black eye on all of law enforcement officers throughout the nation. And there are a lot of people out there. They have their own families. These officers are highly trained in some cases, and unfortunately some have made some bad decisions, and their careers and their family life and everything was ruined because of it. And innocent victims at times. But what's sad about it is that you don't hear about all the good. You just hear about the bad. And I think that's one thing good about, you know, when you talk about social media, when you talk about Facebook, we can get information out there, positive information about what we're doing. You're seeing it with Bloomington Police, Normal Police, ISU Police, Hayworth Police, Leroy Police. We're constantly putting things out there to stay in touch with the community because communication is key to community relations. And, you know, I recently had a post that I put up about Snapchat, about the locations, about how somebody could find you. And a lot of parents were telling their kids to, you know, turn off that location, you know, don't let, and you can just pull it up and show on a map exactly where somebody was at. That's not always good. Even adults have Snapchat. And I'm thinking, wow, people know that I'm in Bloomington and there's nobody at my house. They could go and break into my house. They know I'm not home. So I put a note out there and it went viral. It ended up hitting, I mean, we've got what, 2,800 residents in Hayworth, and it reached 760,000 people. It was shared 9,000 times, I think. Shared 9,000 times. It went viral. Almost 1 million people saw this. I can't get that type of publicity or pay for an ad. I can spend $1,000 and hit the major newspapers around here, and not that many people are going to see what I have to say. So we use it for lost dogs. We use it for recovery of animals. Cats or dogs that were found and brought to us. We put them in a little kennel, and usually within an hour after Facebook, everybody's sharing it, and all of a sudden people come up and they end up claiming it. So that's why we're trying to do the positive, and it's because you know what, ABC, NBC, CNN, headline, none of these Fox News, a lot of these people don't report the positive things that's going on with police officers. But if a police officer messes up, it's all over front page news. Because why? We're held to higher standards. That's why we're trained. We're supposed to be professionals. We're supposed to be in a position of trust. And when an officer breaks that trust, then he's broke the trust with the community. And unfortunately, it tarnishes the shield of all officers who are out there protecting. And there's some good people out there who really want to do good for the community. I love Hayworth. I love this community. I was hesitant about moving here, because I just didn't know the community. Once I got here, I'm like, this is seriously one of the best communities I've ever lived in. I love Hayworth. And being part of the community, getting out and talking to people and getting to know her, that's part of knowing where I live. And there's a lot of good people here. So I do my best to make sure that myself and all of my police officers are getting good training, are staying on top of things, and that we remain vigilant. We're definitely into officer safety and keeping in mind what we need to do to stay safe to go home at night. But on the other hand, to provide the protection for the community. If somebody calls us and they're confiding in us about a situation, I want myself, our officers, to do everything we can to resolve that situation. And that's by getting the facts, typing a thorough report, and hopefully, which will lead to a successful prosecution in some cases. But there is no room for racial discrimination in this agency. And I think I speak for a lot of other agencies. And if there are people doing it, I would surely hope that somebody would come to me and say, this officer did this, he stopped, and I will do everything I can to find out exactly what happened. And if it's true, we will deal with it. There will be disciplinary issues coming down the road, because I have to protect not only my officers, the police department, but the village as well. I don't want us to be involved in a federal lawsuit because of some civil violation, human rights violation. So that's why we have training on that.
Now we've got two thought and feeling questions.
How does working with the police change your view on events that occur in the world?
Working with police, say that again, please.
Okay, how does working with the police change your view on events that occur in the world?
In the world? Well, I think I speak for most police officers when I say that when you become a police officer, you do have a personality change, because it isn't very often that you come into a job as a young person, maybe in your 20s, and you're dealing with somebody in their 40s, and you're telling them they need to sit down and they need to stop talking. They need to be quiet while you're trying to get something going on. And it's difficult for newer officers to do. Personalities change. That's why you see a lot of type A personalities in police. Firemen have them too, but in police, they do have that type A personality in a lot of cases, because we have to go there and it's our job to take control. It's our job to de-escalate situations. And sometimes we have to rise to that level, to where they know we're sincere and we're not going to tolerate it. and whether that be a threat of going to jail or whatever the case may be, which a lot of times just, we want to gain the cooperation of those persons. Off duty, you'll see people who are police officers who, when they go to restaurants, they won't sit with their back to the front door. They want to be back in a corner with their back where they can see the whole view of people. When I go to a mall and you guys are shopping at windows and stuff, I'm looking at people. I'm looking at bulges in sweatshirts and coats, wondering if they have a firearm. I'm looking at individuals that I see that are acting suspicious, wondering, are they stealing? When I drive down a highway or drive down a road like and go by one of the local businesses, and I see somebody standing on the other side of the counter, I'm slowing down and I'm looking to make sure that everything appears to be okay. Those are things I do as a police officer that you guys wouldn't, a normal citizen wouldn't do. We're always looking for you guys are driving by and looking at the mountains and stuff, and even though I might be enjoying the beauty too, I'm also looking at license plates and I'm wondering if they're expired or it's just something that gets driven into you. So a lot of things are different for police officers, And the other thing is, we have to realize that when we're off duty, we still have to portray a professional image. I can't be going out and acting like a fool and then people know that this is our police chief. I don't want things going around about like that. So, where a lot of people, they work at a factory, they can go out and they can go do what they want, and they're probably not going to lose their job. They could get a DUI. They're probably not going to lose their job working at a factory. And I've even seen teachers get a DUI, and they've never lost their job. If I get a DUI, you think I'm going to lose my job? It's going to be gone. Why? Again, police officers are held to higher standards, and there's a reason for that. So,
what are your thoughts and opinions on police brutality?
like I said, I think there's a lot of cases that they've, the Department of Justice has reviewed. They've done a lot of things where, they've said chokeholds are not legal. They would only be used in life and death situation. If a guy's fighting with me and he's got my gun, I can use whatever force necessary to affect the arrest and to stop the aggression. But police brutality, there's, tons of training goes into this on use of force. We have very strict use of force policies. There's a use of force continuum. It could be, a verbal command. It could be actual just police presence. It could be moving up to where you just touch them. It could be where you actually have to use a taser. They call that less lethal force. It's less lethal than a firearm. You have batons and things like that. They're even getting away from that, the batons and the mace, because tasers seem to be less likely for an officer to be injured. Whenever you have somebody getting arrested and they're resisting arrest, they say that 4 out of 10 police officers end up with an injury themselves. 4 out of 10. When you're fighting somebody you're trying to arrest, 4 out of 10, well, that causes workman compensation rates to go sky high and things like that. The insurance that protects us while we're working. So a lot of times they'll just take and, the tasers seem to be more of an option where you could simply point it at somebody and they will comply because they don't want 50,000 volts of electricity shooting through them. They've all seen videos and things like that. So the mirror of, I'm not coming, you're gonna have to take it, you point the taser at them and you turn it on and they see that little red dot coming on them. Okay, don't tase me, and they'll quit. I've seen that a number of times, not necessarily in Hayworth, but the previous department I worked. So there's a lot of things that we do, training. We have strict policies on use of force. When you're talking about using force to, just out of the spite and out of anger and things like that, again, that's where they're opening themselves up for a lawsuit, and we review those videos, we review tapes, we get witness statements, and an officer could find himself in some serious trouble.
Do you approach if someone's if someone seems like they have a firearm on them, do you approach them automatically, or what if they have like a concealed carry or something?
No,